a question. I don't know if you understand or know about it, but how about when a body has a parasite or to be exercised?
Right.
One of the gals today were talking briefly on that. So it's like another spirit attaches itself to your spirit.
So you weren't talking about a physical parasite.
Right.
You're talking about an attachment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have lots of, a lot of my work is about that. But the best person locally, for those of you that are local, is Ted Lund. I send a lot of people to him when they're more. He's great for that.
So that is an actual thing.
Oh gosh, yes. I'll tell you another story. This is a story that happened. I run a weekly meditation group in my class, and this lady came into my place first time, sat down, and behind her is this entity. And I just looked at him and said, this is what I said in my head. What are you doing in my house? You don't come into my house. Get out of here right now. Now, this is not how I normally handle it. Detachments, believe me. I just don't. But it was just yucky, and I just didn't even bother. Usually I do a whole different technique, but it was like I didn't have time. I was in my class, and I wasn't going to have him there. Anyway, as the lady left, I said, I want you to know you're going to feel a lot better now.
So you did, that's how you got rid of it, just like that?
Well, he wasn't going to be in my house.
Well, but he may still be attached to that.
He wasn't attached, I made sure of that. I do have some other techniques. But I mean, basically, that's what my, what are you doing here? Don't come into my house.
How can you tell if you have one?
How do you tell if you have one is mood changes. Or thoughts of doing things that you know is not what you want to do. That's the two main things. The two things, the mental and or the emotional, or
So
both.
that's just not a normal thing for a person.
Well, you usually know yourself when we get older, right? We kind of know, we kind of know who we are, and so when we have a massive shift that makes no sense. Now, I have to clarify something here. If you have an aura, I'm going to go into auras. If you have an aura that's way too big, which most people do, especially if you come from an abusive home, yes, you can put your hand up, Kristen. You can have mood changes if you go out and somebody can walk through your aura and it'll interpret into your body, especially if your chakras aren't working right. So that's a little different than what we're talking about an attachment. An attachment is like a sucking, trying to live through you. And yeah, they can be very, very troublesome. And some people have many of them.
Wow.
Some people have a lot of them. But really, Ted Lund is the expert on that.
Where did they come from?
Well, it's like everything is a vibration. Everything has levels, right? So it's, in other words, even though they're attached to themselves, you've allowed it at some point. You've got to assume responsibility for allowing that. They can come in at a low point when you're depressed, when you drink too much, smoke too much stuff, happy weed, or worse. When your auric level is really scrambled, it can come in. And what they'll do is attach, excuse me, because it's like everything is a level. So that's another reason we study metaphysics, whether it's meditation or just growth patterning. So you can rise that vibration up so that you're working and operating on a different vibe. So it's like, the whole saying, what you put out, you get back. That particular energy field that you're operating in. And we all go down. But if you know and understand your energy levels, and if you've got what I believe, like you're kind of compacted and workable, you're not going to attract anything. But if you've been really emotional, especially if you're emotionally drunk, we'll just use that as an example, you can easily pick up a problem.
Especially at the bar, right? Don't they kind of hang out?
Yeah, mind you, I love bars, so I just don't get to them too much anymore. I find the energy there is mostly just pretty sedate and good. But I'm talking about if you're really bombed and emotionally upset. So, okay, sorry.
Is it possible for a detachment or an attachment to take control?
Take your what? Soul?
Take control.
Oh, take control, yes. Mostly it doesn't happen, but it can.
And what would that look like?
It just means you act how you don't want to act. You see, it means you would give up your power, your inner power, because one of the elements of growth is to grow strong internally. so that you have a power base and you have an understanding of who you are. Which is one reason I love teaching my tarot class to people, because people get to read for themselves and they get to find out who they are. And very often we have a false image of who we are. I just had a class finished not too long ago. Went back to Toronto before I had a class finish. And a very good friend of mine was taking my class, and she's very spiritually aware and involved, and she kept saying, I don't like these cards. I don't like what they're telling me. And that's that part of ourselves we often don't want to see. Sometimes I do readings for myself and I go, oh no, really? I don't want that there. But it's like, take a look. It's a great mirror. We don't always understand who we are. So we need to know who we are, so when we're not who we are, we know. But so often we end up not knowing who we are, because when we're young, we don't, always. And if we're into anything that's going to disturb our energy, we can, not saying you will, but we can definitely create attachments.
Why do attachments attach themselves? Like, are they just...
Well, it's like a sucker, you know, like we're just going to suck on. And it's like they haven't evolved. It's like okay, let me go simple. Dead people who have not evolved and only know Earth are trying to get back, and not all of them are taking the road of being reborn. So they're just sucking onto something that is suckable.
So we're not talking about demons.
Well, you could, but usually I run into, I've done some pretty yucky clearings with things that are really yucky, really evil.
So do they just go out and then attach themselves to somebody else?
No, if you're doing it right, you transform them, get them taken away, get them locked up.
They go, you
Well, you can send them away. You can lock. So I've had people come. I've had the sheriffs come and take them and lock them up.
Sure.
If they won't comply, they won't transform. They have no right, as we don't have any right to put our energy on anybody else. And that's part of the whole growth factor, is to learn how to be in your power and support everybody else to be having what we call power with, right?
What did you mean when we get the sheriffs to lock them up?
Yeah, well, I do. Well, you all know you've got a guide, right? So if I'm working with someone and they're not working, I call the sheriffs, and they come along, because over there is not much different than here. They just don't have a body. And that's what people forget. They think that if they have a guide, it's going to be the best thing since cheese bread or whatever. And then you say, well, did you add? You know, people would sometimes come and they're having trouble. And, well, now I send them to Ted, but I used to deal with them a lot. And I used to say, well, you know, the guide starts ruling their lives, right? My guide says, I'm sure you all know somebody who says that every 5 minutes. Yeah. Oh, my guide says. Have you really checked the guide out?
No.
Do you know how many times I've had people have come and because their life's not working, and they start, you know, well, my guide said blah, blah. First of all, they're giving their power to somebody they've never even met, really, or they maybe met them in meditation. First of all, a guide is not supposed to be in your space. That's not their job. Their job is to guide you, which means you ask for any information you want and they'll tell you, but they're not in your space. So if they're in your space, directing your life, that's not being a guide. That's someone's taking your power and you're willingly giving it. Oh yes, my guide said I should do this. I watched a friend of mine go down the tubes because her guide said. Her guide does not have to pay the bills. He does not have to produce. He does not have to do all the things that we have to do. It's very easy for a guide to come and say, oh, you should just pack up everything and move to Timbuktu. Well, bring the dollars so that I can do that. Because if they're really working, they will do that. They will help create that. But some people say, oh, they just pack up and off they move without thinking. How are they going to support themselves? Well, my guide said. So you really need to check out your guide. You need to check out the level that they're actually operating on.
How do you do that?
Well, that's where you come to see someone who's going to talk to them or figure them out. Or in your own, if you're in a meditation group and your guide comes to you, you ask them about light, you ask them about love, and you listen carefully to the answers. Is it supportive? Where do they hang out? What do they do? I have I channel people's guides for them, usually in groups, but also privately, and it's really quite interesting to hear the caliber of guides that we bring through, because you have a workable one and then you have levels. It's all the way, it's like, we're like a radio station, right? So you have an 800, I'll just do AM. You have an 800 and you have a 1200 and you have a 1450, and they all play different music. But to get to 800 to 1200, you got to turn the knob. So you have to do something by raising your vibration so that you're calling in a different element. A story that I can tell you is that years ago I had a guide who and I knew him. I knew him first of all by his English name of James. He used to run all my circles. And as I communicated more and more with him, when I say run the circle, he kind of just would give me ways of doing things when I wanted that. And then I learned a sound name. Guides, often when they first come through, they'll tell you an English name, and then you'll get the sound name. And usually the sound name is given individually. They don't go and tell a whole group of people what their sound name is. So I called this guide for years, and he was a very quiet guide. He did not want attention brought to him. He did not want people to know about him too much at all, so no one even ever talked about my guide. And then one day he came to me and said, I'm going to take you to meet somebody. And he took me to meet Rama. Rama was a very different kettle of fish. And my guide said to me, I'm leaving, I'm going, and he told me where he's going. I'm going to go over there to work now, because you're now ready to work with Rama. And do you know the day that he said that and left, I could not remember his sound name. It was like he unplugged and was gone. It was interesting. Rama came in. Rama did not mind people knowing about him. Rama taught classes through me. Rama was a character, a strong character. And he taught me many, many things. When I wanted to know something, I would ask him and he would teach me. And he was a hard asker. When I would meet him in my mind, right, I would go and hug him and he would put me back up. So hug me properly. Because I would hug him like I needed something from him. Right? Because I was needy. And he would, no, come and hug me properly. He taught me to stand on my feet. He taught me how to be, a lot of things he taught me. And now, after I was ill last year, I've had another change of guides. Rama's still around, but now I have a feminine guide coming through, whose name is Timurith, and she's a Sufi, and she's very different than what I'm used to. Very soft, very gentle, but strong also. So vibrations change, the things change, things alter, and things work. So, yeah, we gotta go to those sessions. So anyway, I don't know where we started off or where we ended up. It's,